Hey everyone, Greg Woodward here, and this is your weekly win. Last week we talked about relevant clarity in the context of how to avoid triggering your prospect's feature brain by not sharing too much information in one interaction. And this week we're going to dive deeper into relevant clarity and more specifically how to achieve relevant clarity in the first few seconds of a cold call and position the rest of your approach. The first job of a cold call is to get the prospect who you're catching off guard to become present with you in the discussion. Otherwise, you're just talking at them, okay? Usually what robs a prospect from being present at the start of a cold call are the lingering questions that form in their minds. The prospect starts thinking things like, am I supposed to know who this is? What is the company called again? What's this regarding? Is it a problem that I should know about? Did I screw something up? And so forth, okay? And all the while, the last 15 seconds you were talking away, your prospect didn't catch any of it. And maybe they cut you off abruptly, demanding to know why you're calling. Okay? But in either case, when this happens, your prospect becomes too frustrated to engage with, and you lose control over the discussion. You lose control of the call. Relevant clarity at this stage of your approach happens when prospect has a clear image in their mind about what you represent. Okay? And you want to lead prospects to this point in the first few seconds of a cold call. So think about it like this. Until your prospect has reached a point of relevant clarity, they can't be present and absorb the rest of what you're trying to communicate. It's that simple. Okay? So leading your prospects to a point of relevant clarity isn't complicated. It's just a case of quieting down their mind for a few seconds so their brain becomes susceptible to receiving the rest of your message. It doesn't take much to satisfy your prospect's mind in this case. All it really needs is clarity and an image backed by something familiar. Think of it as connecting one dot to another, and that's all you really need to do here. Okay? So how do we do this? Well, let's start with clarity. Clarity in this case is about avoiding any lingering questions from forming in your prospect's mind long enough for you to get through the rest of your message. All right? So keep in mind that what we're talking about here is the starting point of your interaction with a prospect. So this is all happening in a few seconds after you've caught them off guard. So it's all happening in the beginning of a cold call. All right? You want to state your full name very clearly at the start of the cold call, using a tonality that acknowledges your understanding that the prospect doesn't know who you are. Like this. Hi, Bob. My name's Greg Woodward. Just like that. You see, when we do anything that confuses our prospect, what happens is their subconscious mind kicks into overdrive, trying to make sense of things. And that makes it harder for you to lead them to a point of relevant clarity because they're not present with you in the conversation. You don't want to do this. Instead, you want to quiet your prospect's mind and set the stage for the rest of your interaction with them. Okay? You want them to be relaxed and present throughout the call. So, what do I mean with familiarity? What do I mean by that in the context of achieving relevant clarity? Well, if you're a company called Nuco and your prospect probably never heard of you, okay, then saying Nuco on its own isn't going to serve you because on its own, Nuco isn't enough for your prospect's mind to form an image. Our brains do this with everything. We actually think in images. So if I say NBA basketball to you, your brain quickly forms an image of what that represents and becomes satisfied and susceptible to hearing what I have to say next. If I said sailboat, same thing happens, and that's it. How about if I said fulfillment house? What's that mean to you? What image immediately comes to mind? You're probably still thinking, right? Maybe a few images ran through your mind, but there's an element of uncertainty about it, right? You don't really know exactly what I mean here. So there's this lingering question starting to form, and that's distracting you from being present in our discussion. To avoid that, I have to provide additional context to help your brain form an image of what I mean in a way that makes sense to you. So maybe I'd say promotions fulfillment house or an Amazon fulfillment house, for example. When cold calling prospects, understand that you're catching them off guard. So you want the first thing that's said to guide how their subconscious mind frames your approach. And to do that, you need to provide just enough criteria to promote an image of what you represent. Then associate that image with something that's familiar to them. On a cold call, you want to avoid confusion. So if your prospect probably isn't familiar with your company or your company has a name that's hard to say, one thing you can do is state the name clearly and in conjunction with something your prospect is most likely familiar with. For example, if you can say legitimately that your company's partners at any level with another company that your prospect is most likely familiar with, then use that here to your advantage to help set the stage for your prospect with something like, "Hi, Bob. My name's Greg Woodward. I lead the partnerships team at Newco. We're a Citigroup partner based in New York." Everyone's heard of Citigroup and New York, so it's easy for your brain to form an image of what that really represents using that criteria, okay? And adding this dynamic is even more powerful if you know that the prospect you're calling does business with the said partner, okay? If that's the case, then you can also use a more familiar tonality when saying Citigroup, something like, "Hi, Bob. My name's Greg Woodward. I lead the partnerships team at Newco. We're a Citigroup partner based in New York." Just like that. In this example, I've stated my name very clearly to Bob using a tonality that expresses my understanding that Bob's never talked to me before. I told him that I lead the partnerships team at Newco, that we're a Citigroup partner and based in New York. This criteria at the start of the call is enough to avoid lingering questions and promote an image in Bob's subconscious mind of what I represent. So when I transition to the reason for my call, Bob is present and able to engage with. Achieving relevant clarity like this at the very start of a cold call is an effective way to set the stage for a productive discussion. And when we have more productive discussions with prospects, we win.